Alright, good afternoon, and welcome back to Three Swords Gaming. We're going to continue our Guild Wars 2 personal story playthrough. We are now in Secrets of the Obscure. The most recent release came out a week ago, and I'm very excited to continue our Secrets of the Obscure playthrough. Is it Soto? Is it Soto? How are people shortening that? I think people are saying Soto, but both the O and T are lowercase. I feel like it's Sato. Anyway, we're back in Secrets of the Obscure, and I'm excited to continue our playthrough. So we have discovered a new threat to Tyria, which is the Cryptus, these like demon-type figures who are entering Tyria from the mist or threaten Tyria from the mist. And we found maybe a new ally, which is the like the Wizard's Court and the was it like Celestial Ward or something like that? Something Ward. The wizards kind of like martial branch, like their military branch, who contribute to the defense of Tyrius. So that's who we're kind of allied with as we try to identify what this threat means to us and and assist them in defending Tyrion. Of course, our old friend Zoja is a part of that, and so I guess we're happy to be reunited with her. We'll find out more about that as we go forward, and as we'll find out more about them in general as we continue to get to know them and understand their mission, because they're a weird group, right? They got like a dwarf, and they got a Mersat and so forth. So let's dive right back into the story. Come in here and talk to these folks.
Commander, over here.
Hey, Frode. So here's
They are taller than I thought.
I am taller than you thought.
Commander, you know, one of our oldest members.
I don't know. Tell me more.
Oldest mortal members.
Wish
What,
I
are
had
some of
time
them
to give you
immortal?
a proper introduction to the Astral Ward, but things are dismal.
Remind me why we can't call for more help. I could have a fleet of airships here in a day.
The Astral Ward is a secret. That is Isgaran's preference, even in times of worry.
Isn't Iskaran compromised? Won't it be too late if you wait for his permission?
Maban is choosing to honor his will. We will do the same. Rian could really use your help in the Rift Hunters, one of our more hands-on divisions. They track down rifts before whatever horrors inevitably spill out of them. Just like the one that pulled you into Nios. They're popping up all over Tyria. Innocent lives are at risk. Rian is waiting for you. He'll gear you up and give you whatever details you need.
While you help contain the threat, we've got Astral Ward searching for Dagda and Iskaran's whereabouts. As soon as we gather more intel, we'll call on you to help with the cleansing.
What exactly are we dealing with?
Dagda and Iskaran will need to be cleansed, so to say, of their Cryptus possession before they can aid us. Dagda is our first target. We believe she's hiding nearby, probably attempting to cleanse herself of any unwanted guests. As soon as we can confirm her location, we'll call on you. Give me your thing. The one you use to talk to your friends from far away.
My comms device? Oh,
You mean my cell phone? Because that's what we have now. Thanks, Timey. We have a cell phone. Here's my iPhone 14. Take a look.
Do not miss the ever-changing nature of technology. There. I've attuned your little device to pick up on arcane fluctuations. We'll be able to contact you anywhere. Even if you stumble into another rift.
well, let's hope the latter doesn't happen anytime soon.
Yes, let's.
Yeah, so I guess, yeah, we should hope that doesn't... So, not only do we have a cell phone provided to us by Timey, but fortunately, here, like, is a cell phone expert, and thus immediately modified our cell phone from, like, US networks to worldwide networks. So thank you, for that. That's super helpful. So we got Frode here, it's Astral Ward, not Celestial Ward. Pardon my misspeaking earlier. The Astral Ward, these folks who defend Tyria from these threats from the mist on behalf of the Wizard's Court. He's like the commander of that, right? In fact, we met his daughter briefly earlier in the story. Unfortunately, it sounds like she was schwacked, which is we would expect Frode to be pretty upset about, but I guess he understands that's part of the game. So he took it pretty well for a dad who just lost a daughter. And then we got Yuno here, who's part of the gang. So we got a few dialogue options. Let's go ahead and explore them. We're going to start with Frode here because he's got this book above his head. This is our first opportunity to gain one of the features of this expansion. You'll need all the help you can get against these new foes. We can give you special training developed by Ancient Astral Ward Weapon Master. What are you talking about, Fred? The kind that will teach you to use weapons that would otherwise require elite specializations. So I don't want to do my review of the expansion like right now, but I feel like really good about like my initial assessment. I feel like that's bearing out pretty well, which was that this weapon master training, which essentially the weapons associated with elite specs are now available regardless of what your elite spec is. So we are a untamed, but if we want to use the druid staff, we now can upon acquiring the skill from Frode. So people are, I guess, there's some folks who are like kind of like, hey, you know, now there are some unbalanced builds. Well, yeah, of course there are. Yeah, of course that was highly predictable, and it is highly predictable. So okay, use those weapons no matter what your specializations are. Sounds great, even though we're not actually going to change anything about our current build. It's already done. The knowledge is only waiting for you to accept it. Huh. It turns out that I could have done this all along. Who knew? Being part of an ancient magical order has its upsides. I guess, man. So we get a mastery point out of it. That's really great. Oddly, we get a mastery point even though it's not a mastery. That's also really weird. This 100% I expected to be like one of the early masteries, like a 1 mastery point or 2 mastery point mastery early in the mastery tracks. I think that would have been better than just talking to Frode and him saying, hey, you could have done this all along. I don't know what your problem was. Thanks, Frode. Cool. So, well, we're gonna wait and talk to her till after we talk to Yuno. Let's talk to Yuno. You fixed my cell phone. What other tricks do you have up your sleeve?
I was an esteemed professor in the College of Synergetics. To study the metaphysical is to study the inner workings of the flow itself. It's good work. But my people are stubborn and petty. Bureaucratic, even. It's limiting. Zoja and I had the same realization. Expecting satisfaction from that city is like expecting a scrit to win the SNAF prize. So I went on a long sabbatical to explore the world beyond the stuffy labs and debate halls of Radasum. And then I found this big lump of bricks hiding away in Garenhof. Maban noticed my curiosity, and here I am. I still collect stipends from the Arcane Council. They think I'm in a jungle somewhere, gawking at plants. Bureaucracy.
I love that. I love that Yuno is just straight up like involved in like governmental graft. She's just stealing from the Arcane Eye or whoever it is that's like paying her bills from Radasum. That is, however, like a really good, like if you're into immersive gameplay, that's really excellent observations on the part of Yuno regarding Radasum and Asuran culture and so forth. And it's nice to meet an Asura who breaks away from that. So certainly while I'm a little critical, and I should be clear, while I'm critical about certain aspects of the story, this is like the most rewarding story since early Icebrood Saga, and rivals early Icebrood Saga for like the best story in all of Guild Wars 2. So yeah, like the Weapon Master thing is dumb, but overall, I enjoy this story. So we're going to come over here and talk to Director Camillus. This is actually some of the more interesting stuff in this entire release, and it's really interesting here. Director Camillus, what is your deal? And I like everything about Director Camillus. I like her appearance, and I like what she has to say. Let's check it out. All right, I'm Director Camillus, head of the Ward's Fractal Research Division. So when I initially encountered this on my like very first playthrough, like day 1, I was confused. I thought they were talking about Fractals of the Mist, the way we play Fractals of the Mist. That's not what she's talking about. What she's talking about, can I go to this? But we don't have any of the map unlocked. So what we're going to discover is that throughout the map here on the Horn of Maguma, Skywatch Archipelago, well, this is a region. Skywatch Archipelago, the map, is there's all these little floating islands that are different parts of like the greater world, to include expansion content, Path of Fire, and even down here in Cantha and so forth. Um, and those they refer to as fractals. So when you hear fractals in Secrets of the Obscure, they're not talking about like the molten facility fractal or something like that. They're talking about those floating islands and the research they do on those floating islands. I'm sure you have many questions about our work. I'll try to answer the ones I can. So, also, as we go into these questions, keep in mind they have real people, that they've taken from the world of Tyria and put on these fractals for research purposes. So they're doing like live human, or not just human, but Shar and Asura and whatever, live specimen research on these fractals, which is like ethically appalling, right? But it also super interesting. So have these fractals taking sentient beings from Tyria, putting them in weird situations, and then researching it, like, has that been useful?
Extremely useful. I personally believe it is our most important area of research. For many problems, it is difficult to see the solutions in advance, but easy in hindsight, after it's too late to fix it. But the fractals allow us to learn from mistakes we didn't actually make. That knowledge is essential in preventing those mistakes we can't afford to make.
Okay, really sound logic. Unfortunately, because it involves like live specimens, also like ends justifies the means kind of philosophy, where does it justify the means? So why do we have live specimens? Why do we have real people, to quote the commander here, in them?
Originally, the wizards tried simulated beings, approximations that could experience life but couldn't suffer from it. But without that element, they didn't act like they would in our world. The data held no predictive power. Each aspect of real beings was needed. Their freedom, their strength, and yes, even their suffering. It was the only way.
Is it the only way? I mean, I guess if we take it from Director Camillus, and what she says makes sense, right? You need as realistic a simulation as possible to effectively predict realistic outcomes. That, like, from a like pure science point of view, makes sense. You want to limit your variables and have like predictable controls. Not that I'm a scientist, but someone told me that once. So like all that checks out, and yet, geez, right? So these fractals, like once you're done with your research, what happens?
The wizards have the ability to, well, for lack of a better term, to pause the experiments. They are then kept in that frozen state in case they are needed later. That way, no additional harm comes to them.
We should be really concerned by that. I mean, isn't that what Jormag proposed when he like froze people, and we were like, that's a real problem, and Jormag was like, nah, it's not. It's totally cool, and we were like, this is an outrage. But I guess we're gonna let that pass here. What will happen to the people, or the sentient beings in the fractals after this?
We will help them to survive this ordeal as best we can. But after, ultimately, that will be up to them. As long as we could keep them in their fractals, that was the most humane approach. But that is no longer possible. They're living beings, as real as you or I, and they deserve the right to choose their own paths forward.
I love that. I love self-determination as an excuse for negligence. Like that, I'm not going to draw any real-world parallels, although there certainly are some. But geez, Director Camillus, it turns out that you're kind of appalling. How do you live with this? Director Camillus, you are disgusting. How do you live with this?
The same way that you do, Commander.
Whoa.
I've watched your career with admiration, seen the choices you've had to make. You know, as I do, that the right thing to do is rarely clean. There are always consequences, and many of them severe. I've spent a long time on this problem, and this is our best option. Part of leading is accepting the cost of that choice. The truth is, as high as the price is to learn what we've learned, I've never regretted it.
Okay, so I actually really like that, and I'm going to tell you why. Because too many times ArenaNet has punished the player for choices that ArenaNet made in the story. So we have all these different figures mocking the commander for the commander's bad decisions. And it's like, hey man, the player did not choose these decisions. They had no choice within the story on what they did. That was dictated by the folks who wrote like Guild Wars 2 narrative. And yet somehow like the commander is mocked for it, and thus the player is mocked for it. And I don't like that. This is done differently. Instead, we encounter a character making questionable decisions, only to be brought to the realization that this character, that being Director Camillus, that her questionable decisions closely parallel the decisions the commander has made, and so feels less like a direct attack against the player and more like an interesting observation, and I really appreciate it. So she says, I've spent a long time on this problem. This is our best option. Part of leading is accepting the cost of that choice. Truth is, as high as the price is to learn what we've learned, I've never regretted it. All right, so that was also the audio, so that's fine. We're given 3 choices. As far as I know, it doesn't matter which one you choose. Let's just take kind of the ambivalent choice. I don't envy your position having to decide these things, even though the commander kind of does the same thing. We're going to kind of back out and plead a little bit of ignorance here.
But someone must.
Sure enough.
You faced those choices yourself. You're likely to again.
Also fair, because they're not going to change the way they write story in this game. Okay. Cool. So we've talked to everybody. Let's speak to Rian again. Is it Ryan? Rian? I don't remember. I think it was Rian. And we can guess already because the way it went last time.
This'll help. Navigating the islands might be a bit,
Confusing.
right. Over time, Isgarin and the wizards created various reflections.
For the scientific-minded, you can think of them like simulations.
They were kept on an astral plane, separate from our physical reality.
So they're like fractals.
Exactly! But, unlike fractals, these are here. These copies are now physical and susceptible to Cryptus influence.
When the dragon's cycle ended and the spire's magic was fractured, some of those reflections spilled out. They fell into multiple planes of existence. Some of them solidified here. Kaineng, Elona. So often the world was only inches away from a completely different reality.
So they're real, not just illusions? Living beings trapped in simulations?
Real as you and I. They're shaken and in need of someone's help.
Okay, I kind of wish we had got that dialogue before we talked to Camillus, but quite frankly, I had simply forgotten that dialogue triggers down here. I would have come down here, triggered it, and then gone back up. So now we have an explanation for those fractals, as we're referring to them. Again, we can't see them on the map yet, but there's one like Divinity's Reach type thing. It's Garenhoff is like right here, and then there's some Maguma stuff up here, and there's like some Alona stuff and Dwarven stuff, and then where we see Mentor Mia Roast over here is like the Kaineng one, and all of them are very interesting. We'll do a quick tour here in a second. So we kind of have an explanation. Interestingly enough, we get no indication from that dialogue we just went through. In fact, if you hear what was said, when the dragon cycle ended and Spire's magic was fractured, some of those reflections spilled out. They fell into multiple planes of existence. Some of them solidified here. So A, we have no indication of how many of these things there actually are. There might be hundreds, for all we know. And B, some of them did not solidify here in Arteria, which begs the question, where did they solidify and what happened to those sentient beings? We have the potential here. We'll get a lot of this in Soto, Secrets of the Obscure. We get a lot of like suggestions of a very dark story arc that we don't thus far fully explore. But like imagine that. Imagine that some of these fractals solidified in the demon realm or elsewhere in the mists, full of like fully sentient normal people who are now subjected to some kind of horrible, intolerable existence. Really cool, really dark, lots of fun. I like it. I approve wholeheartedly. Rian, I was told to come back and talk to you again, and I have a sneaking suspicion you're going to tell me to do a bunch more riffs.
Commander. Your eyes have seen so many places, so many beasts. I know a hunter when I see one.
Gross.
Apologies. Being in your presence may be more shocking for some than others. I am Rion of the Rift Hunters.
Frode and Yuno sent me to help. It sounds like we're working against the clock.
Your eagerness is welcome, but there remains one step before I teach you how to locate rifts. The heart must be attuned. The ancient magics within the artifact call out for a bond to be formed between itself and the wielder. It should be a simple matter of spending time with the artifact in your possession, doing whatever you normally do. Once you've attuned to the heart, return to me, and I'll help guide you through the next steps.
Okay. So what we actually need, I believe. I was going to say, we haven't done any rifts on this account yet. I was thinking of my main account. Yeah, so in order to do that, we're going to need to finish up a mastery track. I don't necessarily have a problem with that. Finishing up a mastery track. Yeah, thanks. Finishing up a mastery track is better than a green bar, although we're going to get plenty of green bars soon enough. So let's explore the map a little bit, and we'll hit a few events on our way.
My name is Arlay. I'm the ward's second in command of fractal research, and I've taken charge of the cleanup here. This version of Garanhoff aimed to test what would happen if the tower was ever destroyed. Things aren't going well. If you can spare the time, please stay and help out. These people deserve better than what we've given them.
Okay, so it is interesting when we go to each of these areas, and we're in the Garanhoff one right now. So here's Garanhoff, much like it appears over here. And if you look at like the shape of like the bay there, the town around it, it is, certainly similar. Yeah, we're gonna help you. Calm down, Lucretia. It certainly is very similar. And on these individual fractals. Calm down, Lucretia. Jeez. I hope so too. So what we see is that the Astral Ward folks genuinely do have sympathy. So they kind of stand, whereas Camelus really doesn't seem to have much sympathy at all. The Astral Ward folks do. They seem to care about these people. We just heard, who was it? Arlace say, these people deserve better than what we've given them. Yeah, they sure do. But I appreciate kind of that acknowledgement and the way that dialogue is packaged. And like I have a tendency to pick the story apart while I'm playing it, but the truth is, I find this map to feel pretty good. And I find it to feel pretty good, even though, in a sense, we're replaying a lot of stuff we see earlier in the game.
Worse than anything I can remember. And these horrible creatures, I've never seen anything like them.
And I think the reason it feels good, even though it is stuff that's familiar to us, is because it's presented to us in a new way, in a completely different context. So, like, there's nothing about being in Garanhoff again that feels bad to me, at least for me personally, because it is a different Garanhoff in a different context, different environment, and it's relevant to the story. I don't feel like they did this, searching for an excuse to reuse Garanhoff. It feels very appropriate for the story and very interesting, so I quite like it. And that's the case across this map. I enjoy this map. One of the things that I think is great about this expansion is it feels very active. It feels very engaging, which was not necessarily always the case for End of Dragons or Path of Fire. Like, it's been a while since we entered, in my opinion, not since Heart of Thorns, have we entered an expansion and felt like there was a lot going on, like we constantly were engaged by the environment we were in. And it definitely feels that way in Secrets of the Obscure, and I think that's awesome. I think it's really good.
We're not too late. If there were that many here in the village, let's just keep moving.
I am moving, Lucretia. You need to move too. Let's both move. What staff does she have? Does she have the Orion staff? It's a weird staff for a random Garanhoff person to have. Is that what that is? Whatever, man. Just go bananas with the character designer, internet. It may not be. It may just look that way. It might be one of the new ones that's available through the login rewards.
Feel the fury.
Oh, I think this is a daily for me killing an elite enemy. Nice. Good times, Hadbile.
We could use your help here. The storm over Garrenhof has eased up some, and the mayor and I need to look for survivors. It's the least the ward can do, given they were partially responsible for them even existing.
Yeah, right?
If you find anyone, let me know and we'll portal them out.
Another personal They're completely surrounded. Is Gideon? Oh, Six, please let him be okay.
Huh? Who's completely surrounded? What are we talking about here? Oh, these folks? Everyone here?
Gideon, is he okay? Feel the fury. Strengthen the pack. Come on, we have to run them.
Working on it. Thanks, Lucretia.
Wither. I'm on fire. I'll break you down. Feel the fury.
Oh man, we gotta protect these folks from getting
Wither.
possessed. So the possessed thing is interesting. Like, you know, it's not packaged in like the you know, the Exorcist sort of way. It is kind of a different thing, and that's fine. Like, certainly doesn't need to be, and I assume they would wanted to avoid that anyway, since they're, you know, like, that's like a very specific kind of mythology associated with that and so forth. Yeah, so in this expansion, when you hear about like possession and you know, the like, it has more to do with like being susceptible to suggestions and overpowerment from these external forces, from the Cryptus.
They'll have to hit much harder.
Okay, so we got an actual Cryptus here instead of just the elementals. What do we got going on over here? Who's this? Eleanor? Eleanor, not in good shape. We need to get that worked out. What do we got? We got less than a minute. We just need to hang in there.
I'll break you down.
So up until this point, all my gameplay on this map has been like just a ton of players. Like, it was very difficult to try and do an event without other players participating. Not that you would necessarily want to. Like, the whole point of an MMO is that other people are involved. But this is really unusual for me thus far in this expansion, to be in a situation where I'm on an event all by myself. Now, of course, it's that way with every expansion, where you know, there's a period of time when the expansion is just incredibly busy, and then you know, that kind of fades away. But yeah,
Shiny. I don't know. He was with the other kids one minute, and the next he had vanished.
oh, Gideon.
No, 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 no!
Is Gideon Lucretia's kid or something?
My boy.
Oh yeah.
He couldn't be.
Whoa. Hyperventilating. I like that. You need a brown paper bag? Oh no. Is Lucretia possessed? Ooh, she might be. That might be champion level. Oh no, elite. We're good. We should be able to manage this. Whoa, a little bit of a voice change there.
My head!
Alright, so this is a mechanic that we're going to see off and on throughout this expansion, where we have like a Purge Corruption special skill, and that's like us kind of being involved in the... let me kill that. Thank you, buddy.
Time to do some real damage.
You know, like the spiritual or like metaphysical aspect of the exorcism that we are conducting here. And basically, it's a real slow break on the brake bar there.
Back to the fight, my friend.
All right, yeah. All right, we've done a bunch of events here. Let's break away from Garenhoff because I still wanna. We gained quite a bit of experience towards our mastery there, which admittedly it's a small mastery. It's only 2 mastery points, but we do want to look at some of the other maps. One of the interesting things about this map is how incredibly dependent it is on Skyscale. I find that to be kind of a turnoff. I love the expansion. I really do. I'm really enjoying it. I like the maps. Like overall, I think a lot of things were done really well. But it is so dependent on
This place probably looks a bit
Skyscale.
different than the Rudder Novus you remember, huh?
Yep.
The wizards wanted to see what would happen if it survived, and it did pretty well. Leave it to the Asura, right? They're kind of a headache too, so I could always use some help to keep them out of trouble if you've got the time.
Sure, why not? So we do have this like achievement here where we learn about each island as well. And the Asura thing is kind of split into 2 sections. We got like kind of the Chak thing here, and then we got actual like Rada Novus right over here, which is fun, right? Because Rada Novus was such an intriguing area in Heart of Thorns, this lost Asuran city. Really enjoyed that. So it's fun to see it in a different way here, as if it had survived. And I think that's one of the things that's really good about the fractals on this map, is they're not just... part of what makes them work so well is a lot of it, maybe Garenhoff being kind of the worst example, is stuff that people who are like way into the lore might have asked anyway. Hey, what if Rada Novus had survived? And we get to see that. We get to see that right here. So here's another opportunity for us to go through an event real quick, assuming I don't die, and advance that mastery bar, but also have a little bit of fun with some of the fun features or interesting lore about Secrets of the Obscure. You need to be careful though, or I'm going to get my ass whooped here.
We heal as one. They'll have to hit much harder.
I see you back there.
We heal as one.
Alright, so all these Chak will disappear once we get this last Chak nest, so...
We heal as
Or
one.
last Chak egg, so let's just get that. Versus trying to kill all the Chak in this entire region, because that'll keep our hands full. For sure.
Am I amazing?
Sweet, sweet loot.
Oh, I lied. There's a follow-on event, which I forgot about. Alright, so here we go. Actual Rada Novus, which is pretty cool. And such a fun idea. The event here is like really bizarre, though. Honestly. Like, help the Rada Novans throw a party while avoiding possession. I mean that. Yeah, that makes sense. Like if there are two things that don't go together, or maybe 100% do go together, it is throwing a party and becoming possessed. I don't know. Are those like a perfect match or a terrible match? I'm undecided, to be honest.
This fractal was created to study what would happen if ley line energy overflowed without containment. Nature has reclaimed this Maguma, and a unique ecosystem has flourished, one that's worth preserving. While there is much to be done, please resist the urge to slash and burn your way through here in the process.
Interesting thing about that little bit of dialogue there, when she says, "Please resist the urge to slash and burn your way through," I actually find myself when I play in this area and I hear that dialogue, trying not to kill anything. Like I for whatever reason, that like really sticks with me. I'm like, oh yeah, what an amazing thing.
Some equipment in the jungle to track cryptis activity, but it's overrun. If you could use your sky scale to clear out some of these bugs, it'd definitely make things a lot easier.
What it actually reminds me of, interestingly, I once had the opportunity to visit Chernobyl. Obviously, this predates the Russian war in Ukraine, and it was a great example of where a man-made disaster gave nature the opportunity to kind of reclaim an environment. And I know like the pop culture idea of Chernobyl is that it's like some kind of radioactive wasteland. It's not. It's a pristine ecosystem. It's amazing.
Forge. This was my home before I joined the Wizards. Don't embarrass me, all right? This fractal was made to see what would have happened if we lost to the Stone Summit. An awful outcome, I assure you. These dwarves might be a bit less rocky than you're used to, but they're still real, and they can still use your help.
Alright, so this one's kind of interesting because this is not a throwback to another part of Guild Wars 2. Obviously, they reused a lot of Guild Wars 2 assets. Not only things from like Shiver Peaks in general, but also things from the one fractal Dark Delves, where you get like these like pillars and stuff like that. But what they're referring to lore-wise is like first game lore. Where in the first game you actually do battle with the Stone Summit dwarves, and they're at war with like the other dwarves. I forget what they're called, and it's like a whole. You know, it figures into the story in Guild Wars 1. So kind of fun that these fractals not only refer to things taking place in Guild Wars 2, but also taking place in the first game as well, in a way that isn't like story breaking like some of the other stuff that they've done in the past when they wanted to refer back to the first game, and it didn't feel good because it was nonsensical. This to me, again, because the whole thing they like recreated, they shifted their paradigms a little bit with the Wizard's Court, and thus made all this a reality. It's no more egregious. Like it fits right in with all these other fractals, so I don't find myself like being frustrated by the introduction of Guild Wars 1 stuff. Instead, it's pleasing because it fits right in with the rest of this.
Ready for another try, old friend?
Until I'm rejoined, I don't really think I'm going to be able to control the Forge well enough.
I'm afraid we're running out of both time and options. We have to try.
You always manage to talk me into these things. Fine. Come to the Forge and we'll lay out the plan.
Alright, so that's...
We could use your help as well, Commander.
Yeah.
Be careful if you go any farther. The Jade mechs in the city will kill any who enter. The Kaineng you know was built on the backs of the machines. In this Kaineng, the machines have had a change of heart. The Ward sent me to bring some peace to this place. If you can help while you're here, that would mean a great deal.
Okay, so we had two different sets of dialogue there. We had dialogue related to the meta event, which is happening over here with Pink Tag. There's this, and then the whole meta event shifts over here, and the primary portion of the meta event happens here, except that this actually like the islands become separated from the main arena here. All that's the meta event. That second bit of dialogue about Kaineng actually is explaining this region, and again, like a really fun idea, an alternate reality where like Jade Tech goes kind of a little bit like Skynet and turns against Kaineng. And I like that a ton. Like if they're gonna push technology in Guild Wars 2 to that point, then yeah, let's do that. Let's have a Renegade Skynet style JTech. Absolutely. It's more gratifying than a lot of other things they've done in the story. I'll tell you that. Far less ridiculous than some things we've seen. So all about it. All right, let's see what else we got here. Are we gonna actually be able to reach these islands? Yeah, maybe.
This is Ammon of the Ward, and you've unfortunately found yourself in Olona. Or Anolona, rather. Apparently this fractal aimed to study a world where Balthazar succeeded. Not pretty, to say the least. But if you help me out around here, we'll probably both get back to more exciting duties sooner.
Alright, so what he's talking about is not where we are right now. That's not this little island here. I think this little island is like this is like a bonus area. So this isn't one of the fractals. This is Mabon's like hangout. I think there's a chest inside here, isn't there? I do believe. Yeah, what do? We like put another one down like right about here? Alright. That's kind of a carryover. That whole system there is kind of a carryover from End of Dragons, obviously. That dialogue was related to this, which is all like Alona stuff, right? So it's the last island that we're going to explore, and then we're going to go back and talk to Rion so that we can do some of these rifts. Not a fan of the rifts, but we'll get to that in a second. Let's come down here and look at this this Alona thing, which, if we go back to Captain Eamon's dialogue, a world where Balthazar succeeded. And my understanding is, I haven't had a chance to talk to like every single individual down here. I don't know, are there some that we can actually talk to? But my understanding of this area is that the commander is like, in this alternate reality, the commander failed and is possibly dead. Either is dead or gave up. And thus, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to run into you there. And thus, that was what facilitated Balthazar winning, or Balthazar killed the commander, or whatever the case may be. And like, maybe Joko is thus helping to try to liberate these people, because, you know, that would still make sense. Joko had interest.
The sooner I can get back to fighting the Cryptus, somewhere cooler, ideally. There's no shortage of despair around here, that's for sure. So get to work.
Okay, the reference to despair is actually a reference to the event that's taking place right now, which we are not going to participate in because we actually have the experience we need for the mastery. But I was hoping there was a reference over here somewhere to the commander. There it is. But the event might make it hard for us to... We're gonna try. Let's see if we can kill this forged officer and take a look at this book really quick. And I'm not trying to like deep dive the lore, but it is a story playthrough, so let's get enough of the lore at least to, like, you know, make sense of what we're seeing here, and I think this book is going to help, so. Nice. My favorite skill that forged officers have. Thanks for that.
I'll break you down. Pick 'em up.
Alright, where is it? The fate of the commander.
Can you imagine meeting your god and finding out that he hates you?
Yep, probably pretty bad. It's been many months now since the commander fled Alona in the wake of Balthazar's victory. The people here have not forgotten their promise as they left, that being the commander, that they would return and undo the damage before it was too late. But as Balthazar's power has solidified, why didn't they just say the commander's promise? As Balthazar's power has solidified in the absence of the commander's length, it has become clear to most of us that no salvation is coming. We are on our own. No one knows what became of them after leaving. Perhaps they succumbed to the injuries Balthazar inflicted on them, or maybe they truly are preparing to return. But perhaps it is as so many fear. We have been abandoned by yet another savior, left to die in our desert and be consigned to history, a forgotten people buried in sand. So, yeah, kind of like overall, like really kind of fun and interesting, in my opinion at least. And I think that is a really good description of all the islands. Fun and interesting and engaging. So many events. It's hard to come to one of these islands and not find an event taking place. And that's what it needs to be. And they did it. So kudos to them for that. I salute ArenaNet for succeeding at that, because definitely Path of Fire didn't feel that way, and sometimes End of Dragons didn't feel that way either. So I like that this expansion does feel that way. All right, are we out of combat? And if so, let's get our mastery here so that we can go talk to Rian, I'm pretty sure.
I can't believe this plan is finally working.
The worst is yet to come. Forging the key is going to pull a lot from you. There are dangers that come with that.
I've survived worse. It's gotta be done, Maban. So we might as well get to it.
All right, that is again a reference to the meta event. I simply didn't want to interrupt it because it's hard to talk over the audio of the game sometimes. All right, Rian.
Well, your help comes with kind timing. Rifts have been appearing all over Tyria, but they're especially potent here. Thankfully, that device of yours, the Heart of the Obscure, has given us a new windfall. In your hands, a blessing. They found it in Waiting Sorrow's quarters just before we lost the tower. Don't know what she made it for, but the Heart's ability to open and seal rifts by following their astral frequency is impressive. I've not much more time with the Heart than you, but let me guide you. The Heart of the Obscure is capable of astonishing things. It can act as a conduit for your emotional energy, channeling it as a source of power. Now, hold the Heart aloft and focus your thoughts on the demonic rifts and your desire to hunt down these intruders.
Okie dokie. And then we get like the nice kind of tutorial guidance here that leads us to this. So where we previously have some other skills such as the Jade Bot waypoint, fishing, and our skiff and stuff, we now have scan for rift, right? So we have the what was it called? The Heart of the Obscure, right? Wasn't that what it was called? I'll tell you what I don't like. I don't love about this dialogue is that the Heart of the Obscure in our hands is like capable of great things. Well, it used to be in Zoja's hands. What, did Zoja not know what she was doing? Like, Rand knows how to work it. Zoja didn't know how to work it. Like, I don't love that the commander is the key to unlocking the potential in this this arcane device that was created by some what are the polar bears called? Oh my gosh, I forgot what they're called. You know, the polar bear people. Why is the commander the key to this? Once again, so while I really like that this expansion by and large avoids the trope of the chosen one for the commander or for the player character, in this case, they just can't help themselves. Kind of disappointing.
Do you feel it?
I can. I can see it. The magic in the air
All right.
is flowing.
Incredible. What does it look like?
Hard to describe. A little frightening. Like the world itself is reaching toward something. You can't see it?
No. You and the Heart are one in this moment. I've seen before what you do now, but I am a bystander. It might seem overwhelming, but don't be afraid. These are your own thoughts made manifest. Go on now. Why don't you see where it leads you?
I have a sneaking suspicion it was actually leading us towards a spot right next. There's one that manifests like right here, and I'm kind of afraid maybe it led us there. Which would be a little bit problematic because people are probably finishing it, if that's the case. So one of the important things to understand about rifts, they don't, like the rift is not unique to you. So like while we're trying to get to this one, other people also have interest in this rift. Oh, no, it's somewhere else. And thus, it could easily be finished before we get to it, which obviously would be a bummer for us, not for them, because they completed what they set out to do, but disappointing for us because we did not set out what we want to do. And that's a bad feeling when it happens. I don't necessarily know a system that would have avoided that, but I know that it doesn't feel good. And I'll leave it at that. Overall, again, I'm not trying to do Yeah, I'm going to do a separate video at some point where I just kind of review the release. But I will say the Rift system in general feels terrible. I don't enjoy it at all. I think it's awful. And we're forced to do it a number of times throughout the story. And we're doing it right now. So there you go. I think we're going to have to do 3 or 4 of these to advance the story. You really want in order to avoid feeling like you're rushing to beat other players, you really want to get waypoints across the map before doing rifts, so that you have the opportunity to, to do rift things. Okay, so they already defeated all the little creatures that come out of the rift, and they're waiting for the big guy. So this rift is like 50% done by these 2. I can't be mad, or 3, or however many people here. Can't be mad at any of them. Absolutely cannot. Because they were doing what made sense for them, which is play an event. And they are also, very possibly pursuing the rifts for their story advancement and so forth. Is just one of several weaknesses about this system. One of several things that just plain don't feel good. There are a lot of things that don't feel good about the system, honestly. Alright, we closed one.
Good. The Cryptis are relentless. There are doubtless many other rifts to see. You've got your work cut out for you. If you have questions or need guidance on any of this, come and find me. We're in this together.
Thanks, Ryan. I will. But for right now, I need to quickly try to find the next rift. So yeah, you're just going to have to eat the silver cost and waypoint all over the place if you want to get to rifts in a timely fashion. It's behind us.
He's in stasis now, but the situation is dire. Forging the key made him vulnerable to a deep corruption. It's wound its tendrils around him. I'll try to untangle it from him, but I can't do it alone. Please, help me save my friend.
Now, if there's one thing I can say about the rifts that I do like one thing that they did do well, the visual effect of the Star Wars going to hyperspace or whatever it is thing. That effect though of showing us where the rift is, I think that's super cool. I think they did a good job with that. Visually, it's a fun thing. Unfortunately, gameplay-wise, it's not necessarily a fun thing.
Feel the fury.
So this is how they usually start, is with a whole bunch of enemies coming out. And so we're going to fill the bar and thus draw out the big enemy. And that, in principle, is fine. That's not where I necessarily have the problem with the system. There are other weaknesses with the system, including the fact that it just plain doesn't feel rewarding. And if you're working on legendary armor, the stuff that you need is going to feel even worse.
Terrifying, isn't it? You'll need to stabilize it before you conceal it. Get closer and channel the heart. The Cryptis will attempt to break your focus on the spell and stop you. Be prepared to defend yourself.
I am prepared to defend myself. Thanks. I triggered that a little bit early. It wore out before a dude even came down. Well. What are you gonna do, man? What are you gonna do?
Time to do some real damage.
So you can see there's like 3 or 4 of us here, and he's an elite, so he's going down relatively easy with 4 people. And of course, because they could potentially spawn for one person, I think the idea is that one person could take him out, so elite is the right difficulty. But because they don't scale well, that means it's exceptionally easy. With like 4, it's pretty easy. Imagine if we had 15 people. The goal would be to land the hit before the guy dies, right? That's one of the greater weaknesses that I was talking about. Is that it's not even close to compelling gameplay, particularly for like good players, which I don't consider myself. So that we're clear on that point, I don't consider myself a good player, and I don't find it particularly compelling gameplay. Imagine, someone who like has a really solid grasp of gameplay, regularly plays challenging content. Imagine them like going through that. That probably would not feel even a little bit good. One good thing, we can search for this thing while we're on the move. So I don't have to stop to vector. I can vector while I'm, like I can reestablish our little glowy things here, and vector towards the rift at the same time. So I am grateful for that. Otherwise, it would have been even more punishing and more frustrating. I've heard it compared to a Season 1 pre-Heart of Thorns special event where Mordremoth were like spawning randomly on a certain map. Or on I think it was 2 or 3 different maps they were spawning on. It's been a long time since Season 1. And I think that is an apt comparison. Or Scarlet's Invasions are another like pretty solid comparison. Where players were rushing eagerly to get from one point to another in order to participate in an event. And if they did not make it in time, then they missed out and they had to restart or wait for the next thing. This doesn't feel quite as bad because we're not missing out on rewards when we don't get here, if only because there aren't good rewards. But just the same, like it does come with its own set of frustrations when you miss out because you wasted time. And the kind of that MMORPG cliche of like respect my time really becomes an issue with rifts. You can see, I think these are the same people as this very well. We had a mechanist at the last one. We have a mechanist, so that's going to happen when you're going through the story. Other people are also going through the story. At least right now, with the story being so fresh, and so am I competing with this person to make sure we both, or the 3 of us or whatever, all get to this event at the same time? It shouldn't feel like a competition, but it does. Maybe it's because we're all inconsiderate. We all start it without the others being present. I started this one without knowing if they were coming or not. So maybe I'm the problem. But it doesn't feel good. Alright, this should be about the last guy that we need.
I gather your rift hunting is going as planned.
Adapting. These fractals. To be born into one reality, then pulled into another to be hunted by demons.
Another thing that we'll need to handle.
Yeah, you're right, like that. It feels problematic, doesn't it?
Please report back to the medical ward at the Beacon of Aegis. I'll break you down! Given your exposure in Nios, I'd like to confirm that you are in optimal health.
If the fox pokes his head into one too many rooms, who knows what will snap these things. Be careful approaching the rift. Ceres is looking for you. He got a taste, and he wants a
Another
bite.
personal victory. If you're so concerned, why did you rescue me?
For curiosity, perhaps. Or do I want to kill you myself?
Not making a great case for yourself.
You are such a fascinating creature. Your memories are molten. The trials you faced.
All right.
You blame me for wanting to see what comes next.
So we got some more of the mystery voice. More of this weird voice in our head. Again, I kind of wish that had manifested a little bit differently, but it is definitely... Oh, are they right behind? Oh, yeah, look at that, right behind us. I had no situational awareness at all. It doesn't feel terrible. Like, it's an interesting way... They do a good job, because it's not interesting. They did it with Jormag before, so it's not super interesting. We've seen it recently. But it is... They do a good job of using it as a vehicle to deliver exposition. Better here than they did with Jormag, quite frankly. At the same time, again, because we just had it with Jormag, something slightly different might have been a little more rewarding. All right, so now they just came to the realization that, oh, guess what? We need to check you out medically because it turns out you might have problems after being like snagged up and yanked into the underworld. So I guess we need to talk to someone. about this? Oh, we're actually in the wrong area, though. I went to the wrong spot. Well, we're here. Let's talk to Zoja. Hey, Zoja. I closed some rifts, and I'm headed to the doctor.
Oh. Hey.
This place is impressive, if not a little terrifying. The wizards can create fractals. Still trying to wrap my head around it.
Yeah, it can be a lot. We're still getting used to all of this ourselves.
This one is a little prickly, but I can tell you're familiar. She's harder to read. Emotional. Angry.
Did you say something, Commander?
Oh, I wouldn't tell her about me if I were you. She's a bit more raw. Might not react how you'd like.
Nothing from me. I'll leave you to your work.
Alright. Done talking to Zoja. Let's return to... But we get more mystery voice. So, I mean, that's good. A little more clarity on what's going on here. Or if not clarity on what's going on. Oh, weekly. What did I complete weekly? Oh, fun. Up here is the infirmary. Can we call it an aid station? What does the Navy call it? The Navy doesn't call it infirmary either. I forget what they call it. All right. Hey, I want to look at this real quick. That is a unique haircut, and I want it. I want it on one of my characters. It exists in the game. I know it exists in the game because Rift Hunter Medic has it, but as far as I know, it's not available to us. And it is a great reminder. Is this one available to men? I don't think the goatee is available to men. It's been a really long time since we had new options and added to the makeover kit. Like, I think we're way overdue. Rift Hunter Medic.
Yuno told me you were coming. Sit. Quickly, please.
Okay. Sure.
Vital signs. Mostly normal. Do you feel anything strange? Sharp pains in your feet? Any nausea? Distant memories surfacing? Nothing like that. Need you to be honest if we want a proper bill of health, Commander. Maybe I've been hearing a whisper since I got back from the demon realm? Nyos? Not surprising. Here, let's check on your astral alignment. Influenced, perhaps. But I can confirm that you aren't possessed. Your will is intact. We can work with that. Hearing voices after traveling through the mists isn't entirely uncommon. So long as it's not telling you to murder anybody, and you're not acting on those impulses, I see no threat.
That would make things exciting, wouldn't it?
I'll let you know if that changes.
Yeah. So interesting things. I don't know if her saying, that hearing voices after traveling through the mist isn't like completely unusual. I don't know if that's like a reference to the Revenant class and what Ritlock experienced and my Trin. If so, I find that interesting and I like it. Another thing that I like, that there's a little stool here and we sit in it and we gain access to the stool as like a as a novelty. So now which one of these is a chair slot? Chair slot, we now have simple stool available. That's smart on ArenaNet's part because if they want to sell like all these other chairs, like are there chairs? Chairs fall into toys, right? Club chair, comfortable reading chair, which people are quick to point out is like a bad reading chair because they put their tea on books. I mean, if you say so, man. Candy cane chair, so on and so forth. Like the if you want people to buy chairs, give them a starting point, and especially like when people are waiting on like Dragon's Den and stuff like that, and you see all the chairs come out. Hey man, give a new player something to sit on during that time, and it just whets their appetite for gem store items. So a good move all the way around. I like that. I like our time there with the in the infirmary.
Nice work out there. Sky scales are invaluable for navigating the fractured landscape, but there's even more they can do. Speak with Skyscale trainer Diane at the Beacon of Ages if you want to learn everything there is to know about Skyscales.
Sure, why not? Let's go talk to her. We're about done for today, but let's go talk to Diane first. This activity right here, which Diane is right next to, Astral Ride Master Kensuke over here, is pretty cool because it heavily incorporates the number 2 skill, which we don't have, but we might as well start working on. Fireball here, which will add. It'll appear right here as your number 2 skill when on Sky Scale, and you literally just shoot a fireball. There are some implementations of it which are kind of poorly done and kind of disappointing, but it's kind of fun to have, and it's more fun in activities like this than it is in the actual meta events where you are supposed to be using it. It is better here and more fun here than there. And I strongly encourage folks, if they have not tried this out, like, should we just do it? Let's just do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. Go. Alright, so what we're not going to get... Whoop. Oh, I missed it. I'm already doing bad. So we're not going to get like a respectable score at all because we're not hitting any of these targets. So all we can do is hope to get through it fast, but that's not the way to like score a good score. To get a good score, you need to shoot at these targets with the fireball ability, and so these recharges become especially important. Not just because they recharge your stamina for like the fast flight skill, whatever that's called, dash. Not just because it recharges dash, but it recharges your fireballs as well. So you can shoot fireballs as many of these targets as possible. And that is like the thing that is going to get you rewards in this one. Because you can see we're trucking through it okay. We're done here in a second, and our score is not going to be like no rewards. Yeah, not good either. So once we get that fireball skill, if we come back and do it then, completely different experience. All right, Skyscale trainer Diane, and this has a weird bug where it's going to like pull me back to the start here in a second. Might happen while we're talking to Diane. Let's go ahead and get started talking to her though. Good to see you again. You've got the look of someone who comes to life when they soar high above the clouds. What can I do for you? Frode told me to come talk to you. So this really is just like full disclosure. This is here for new players who have no idea what they're dealing with like sky scales, and they, it's just to help facilitate their understanding, because you cannot do Secrets of the Obscure without using sky scales extensively. You just can't. Could I theoretically maybe get like up here and maybe even glide over here? Could I potentially get over here for the meta event without a sky scale? Possibly. I haven't tried. Maybe I should give it a whirl sometime. But like, it's very clearly intended that you use sky scale extensively throughout this entire expansion, and so they have to facilitate that on the part of new players, and that's what this is all about. Yeah, sky scales are essential for navigating around the area. Yeah, truly essential, which I do think is a weakness of this expansion. Like, imagine pulling out a roller beetle in this expansion. Like the only spot where you could do it, in my opinion, is to like try and traverse portions of this Alona thing. Anywhere else, it just wouldn't make any sense at all. Even if you got experience flying one, the Astral Ward have devised some tricks you might not know about. Yeah, so they do give us like a couple of minor upgrades to the sky scale. For the most part, they're not noticeable. I guess the ley line and updraft thing is noticeable, but like the wall launch thing is not really particularly noticeable. Where do you suggest I start?
Commander.
Okay.
We think Dagda is near the old observatory.
Oh my.
Rian will watch for additional rifts. You need to come to us immediately.
All right. So we haven't met Dagda yet, have we?
Welcome to the Astral Ward.
We didn't meet her coming here, did we? No, I don't think so. We met Zoja and Frode. We did not meet Dagda. So we're going to get our first chance to meet Dagda soon. Unfortunately, not under the circumstances we'd like, because she is possessed, right? And that's bad. I assume that's bad. It's normally bad in most usages of the term. Let's try not to trigger that dialogue. Let's come way over here. Yes. Great. We didn't trigger it. All right, so here is where we are going to wrap up for today. Just because I have constraints on my time play this evening, and we're already at an hour 10. So let's wrap it up here. Getting to know the Astral Ward better, getting to know the Wizard's Court better, getting to know some of those characters, and also understanding the threat of the Cryptis. But we still have huge problems. One, we have we're coming to grips with the reality of these fractals and what the wizards have done here, and the fact that it's like really, really bad. And some of the wizards' more powerful compatriots, or some of the more powerful members of the wizards' court, are currently possessed by the Cryptis, and that seems really bad. We don't fully understand the threat the Cryptis represent. Definitely something we need to know more about. So, a lot still to uncover, and when we come back for the next chapter of our playthrough, that's where we're going to continue, with the most immediate thing being, can we rescue Dagda from her possession? So that is where we'll pick it up next time. Thank you, and I hope you have a good evening.